My granddad's name was a curse for me until 1991, and it became a blessing right after the communism fell. That's life, basically.
Welcome to a new episode of Most Memorable Journeys. My guest today comes from a country that for many people may still be a little bit mysterious, even though things have changed a lot in the last few years. It's a country that I personally love very much, and I have been a few times. But we're, of course, not only going to talk about the country, we're going to talk about the man himself. And I am delighted to have him on my podcast today. Bilal Kola. I was actually practicing, and now I really said it wrong. Bilal Kola. Am I saying that correct? Correct. Welcome to Most Memorable Journeys.
Thank you, Elizabeth. A pleasure to be with you here. First time around, you were correct, so no need to correct what you were actually correct about.
Well, I just wanted to make sure, So, Bilal, you have a Ph.D. You are actually Dr. Kola. You are a lawyer and have become in the past few years, you have become a motivational speaker. You are an author. You basically have learned from your story. You have a story, and this is the story that I want to talk to you about. But, you used your story for fuel to become who you are today. Am I right?
Well, thank you very much for the introduction. Yes, you are absolutely right. I do have a story. And yes, I believe that in terms of what I'm doing now with my life, and of course, in terms of what I aspire to do early in my youth, yes, I've used my story as fuel for all the ambitions I had about educating myself and the ambitions I had about, let's say, being a force for good and somebody who could, do his best to contribute and become a positive influence for the life of others. Also, taking into account what I have been through in terms of, let's say, certain consequences that life brought on me.
Yeah, because Albania was until 1991, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was 1991. It was very, very closed up. You weren't really in touch with any other people in the world, and you were under a lot of control.
That is right. That is right. Actually, until 1991, Albania did not belong either to, of course, not to the Western, let's say, societies, but neither did it belong to the Eastern communist bloc, because as of 1961, Albania was completely on its own, a completely segregated country. So, yes, Albanians, about 3 million Albanians were living in a big prison. But there was not an insignificant number of Albanians. We are talking about at least 15 to 16% of the population who were not living just in this big prison, but they were living either in small prisons or rather bigger prisons. And the small prisons, just hear me out on this, Elizabeth. They were like the small prisons, we're talking about really confined prisons, and the rather bigger prisons, we're talking about concentration camps where people who were living there, they could leave concentration camps provided they got some special permission from the authorities. So that's basically what was going on with Albania starting in 1945 up until September 1991.
You remember the month because it was very important to you. Because I read that you were actually in one of those concentration camps and you couldn't finish school.
Well, I was born in a concentration camp and I was released from the concentration camp when the communist regime completely collapsed. And that was September 1991 when I was 18 years of age. So I stress this. I didn't know anything big prison because only in few occasions I left the concentration camp, only when visiting my dad in the political prison, notorious political prison of Bured, and in a few other occasions when my mom was going to see her parents. So only those occasions. And as you put it out yourself, yes, I was also deprived of going to the secondary school. So when I was 14, I was ordered to work heavy agricultural labor work. So while doing this labor work, I was growing in terms of I was very small stature, being badly, badly fed during all my life. And, it was, I can vividly recall that it was absolutely very unpleasant experience, all of it.
Amazing. Do you remember how you felt in September 1991? What went through your head when you actually, or when did you actually realize that this is over?
I realized it was over in December 1990, even though those 8 lingering months, to be honest with you, in those 8 lingering months, I have been as happy as I could be, even though I was not free, because I was sensing, I was smelling, I was, everything was, and I was only 17 at that time. I was smelling freedom, and I was smelling all those opportunities that I'd envisaged for myself when I was a teenager, a young boy, not being able to go to school. And I had all these wild dreams of fleeing the communist Albania and going to the States, becoming a lawyer there. All these wild dreams, they were not like an imaginary thing anymore for me. Starting December 1990, when some uprising started in Albania, students starting some massive uprising in Tirana, I was smelling the interesting flavor of freedom. So yes, I've been living those 8 months until September, when I really got out of the concentration camp and came to Tirana with full hope and absolutely like I was delighted, basically, in and out.
I can imagine, because 8 months can be a very long time when you are waiting for something so important. And I also read somewhere that you got hold of books, though. You managed to read Western books, and you knew about America, and you knew what you wanted, but it wasn't sort of tangible yet at the time, but you were ready.
Yeah, I would say that the books were like, I was not just escaping the reality with those books I read. When I was about maybe 12, 13, right at the starting of my teen years, I got in so much into books, because I knew that what I was experiencing as a reality, of course, did not match my aspirations for what I wanted to live in life. So in order for me to get completely in a world of my own, I started reading. And actually, these kind of readings, the books that I read, made me live a sort of, I was living my own life, even though that was only in my mind and imagination. But still, the deprivations that I faced in the reality, at least they were not as burdensome, because the books gave me hope. Not like intangible hope, but hope that, yes, someday I will make it. And they have carved in my soul and mind, I would say, deep ambitions and desires. So yes, I was absolutely raring to go when communism collapsed. And yes, I did take my opportunities with both hands when they availed themselves to me.
Yeah, but you see, this is a very important thing that you just said. You did take the opportunities because you didn't have any opportunities before. And there are many people in this world who do have opportunities, but they don't see them. And I think this is one of the things that you are teaching people today, and that's what I'm teaching people as well, because I'm also doing a similar thing to you. Opportunities appear, but we have to notice them.
That is so true. That is so true. Opportunities, even for me, I consider finding those books, reading those books, I consider that as an opportunity presented itself. I was raring to go. I was absolutely ready to grasp everything that life was exposing me to. So in our world today, I believe our world today is filled with opportunities. I've done with my life since 1991 everything, and by everything, please understand everything with capital letters. Everything
which is legal.
Yeah, no. I mean, I did not have I had wild dreams, but I didn't have wild dreams of doing things which would be illegal. Yes, I've done all the legal things that I aspire to do. And by all the legal things is this: I have had top education. I've traveled the world. I love traveling. I've been in so many countries, and I like to explore the countries not from above, but basically, I've traveled I haven't been to Scandinavian countries yet, but I've traveled almost the entire European continent by car, and I haven't been to Portugal by car. And I've traveled by car so that you understand why I say everything in terms of travel. I've traveled both western and eastern coastlines of US and Canada. I've been to so many countries. Majority of my visits have been for business reasons, but sometimes also I mix business with pleasure, and tourism as well. I was just going to say, where I visit the country that you live, I wanted to visit Cyprus for a long time. Like 5 years, I had made my plans to come and visit Cyprus, but of course you catch up on things. You have to do the business that you do. All these things, and the opportunity availed itself that the International Lawyers Conference that I was a part, and I'm still a part, with headquarters in London, they organized a conference in Cyprus. And I said, here I am. I'll go to Cyprus, attend this conference, and have a little bit of holidays and explore the place. So that's what I did. When I said I've done everything, yes, in terms of my career, I've done everything I have wanted to. I finished my education. I did my LLB, my bachelor degree in law in London. I also did my master's in international business law in London. And when you mentioned my Ph.D, which is in strategic leadership, I did that in an American university in Vienna while I was teaching. It was like a barter transaction while I was teaching students, undergraduate students in that university, business law, which I've done in Albania for like 15 or more years in a university in Albania. So I would say that starting 1991 until 2023, I've done everything I kind of dreamt about when I was in that concentration camp.
Wow. I also read somewhere that you, and we were talking before about opportunities, you met somebody who helped you go to study in the UK, right?
That is correct. It is. Let me just share this with you, Elizabeth, and your audience. It happened that out of 3 nephews that my granddad had, it was me who actually inherited his name. My dad named me after his own dad. And only because of that, because my brother, he was allowed to go to the secondary school. My cousin, he was also, and they are elder than me, they are older. So yes, they were allowed to go to the secondary school, because internees, they were not allowed to go to university or college, but secondary school, it was okay. We could go. It was like a special exclusion from this rule, from the exclusionary rule of higher education, my case. And the communists did this whenever they had, because my granddad used to be a prominent political figure during, let's say, late 1930s and during the Second World War. He was helping British SOEs who arrived in Albania to organize local population in fight against Nazis. And I stress this, my granddad was somebody who had an affinity for German, let's say, German-speaking countries, because he was someone who was educated in Austria himself. But he made a clear-cut distinction in terms of ideology and in terms of where the world was about to go. So he collaborated with British, not with the Nazis, because he knew that the values, the humanity values, they were basically promoted and protected by the Allies, not the Nazis. Even though this inclination of him having, let's say, studying for 6 years, I believe he studied in Vienna. Anyway, my granddad was helping the British SOEs, and one of these guys, Julian Emery, who was a lord at that time, he arrived in 1993 in Albania, attending a ceremony where he was being awarded the highest honor, the George Skanderbeg Order that we have here. George Skanderbeg is our national hero, by then President Berisha, Albanian president. So my dad met him, and he basically asked him only this favor. When Emery found out that I was inheriting his friend's name, he said, "It's not a favor I'm going to do. This is like an utmost obligation." So basically, he took care of everything. His assistant, personal assistant, helped me with everything in terms of scholaries, in terms of the scholarship that I got, in terms of the applications that I presented. There was this system of UCAS. You had to apply to to attend British university. You had to apply through a specific system, which I had no clue about. And this wonderful lady helped me, of course, guided by Lord Emery. And there I kicked on. So yes, my granddad's name was a curse for me until 1991, and it became a blessing right after the communism fell. That's life, basically.
It's absolutely amazing. But that goes back again. It goes back again to recognizing opportunities, because you could have just, or your dad could have just participated at this event and not spoken to Lord Emery about you wanting to go to England. So you'd grasped the opportunity and you went to the UK. Was that the first time you went abroad?
Yes. And there is this funny story at the airport. It was the first time I went abroad. And the funny story that happened actually, what I did, because I was following my middle school at that time when Emery came here. But what happened was that he invited me to go to UK and do summer school there. So the first time I went to UK was not when I started my studies, because it was the year after. But anyway, the first time I went to UK, we had these passports and they had all the emblems of the communists. Even though the communist regime had fallen and collapsed, still the authorities issued those old passports. And I arrived in Heathrow. It was not only one immigration officer, but at least like 5 of them, because they had never seen such passport. And the guys were like, "What is this passport about?" Because it was it was a communist passport, basically. So yes, it was my first time in UK, and I don't know how to put this, but I was like, where am I here? What am I doing in this place? I was like, this is like heaven on earth.
Yeah, that's like, and it must have been a little bit overwhelming as well at the beginning, because, suddenly, because it was a huge, huge change. And I admire you. I admire people. I'm from Switzerland, and, we have always had everything available. We never had to fight for anything. And for people like you who take these opportunities, who use them, who must have felt very, very uncomfortable at the beginning sometimes, and really, really did something with this opportunity, that is amazing. That's admirable. And I think you've done really, really well.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I really appreciate this. To be honest with you, overwhelming it was, absolutely so, but I was cherishing it. Yes, my English at that time was okay, because I studied like I don't know, like crazy. I studied 8 hours a day when I had the opportunity. I've learned Italian through watching incognito Italian TV during communism, because we were not allowed to watch like foreign channels. But we did some antennas. My let's say brother and cousin, we did some antennas. And actually, I didn't have a television set at home. I went to other people who had a television set. So first time I've had a television set, I think it was in 1991, late 1991, when we arrived in Tirana. But yes, I learned Italian through television. I had no clue about English. I didn't know. Yes, I was actually listening to Italian hit parade, and there were English songs there. And because of this association of my granddad with let's say English SOEs, as a family, we were kind of sort of oriented towards like Anglo-Saxon things. But in a way, it was just an orientation because we could not, I did not have any opportunity to learn English. And I was in school, in primary school, I was forced to learn Russian. And I'm sorry to say this, but I hated it. Nothing against Russian people. Just I hated the language only for one major reason, because I associated Russia with communism. So I just hated it. I didn't want to learn it. I was like resisting with all I could. But, and if basically when we, got free and the communism collapsed, I only knew maybe 5 or 6 words in English out of what I imagined those songs were, the lyrics of those songs were about. So when in 1991, when I started learning English, I went like crazy. I went into this course where people were teaching Bible. Americans were teaching Bible. I did whatever thing. I started reading Dr. Zhivago. Somebody gave me this book, Dr. Zhivago. I knew maybe about 200 words in English, and I was reading Dr. Zhivago with a vocab, with a dictionary. It just so I've sort of tried to practice colloquial English, tried to expand my vocabulary, everything. And I believe I read Dr. Zhivago maybe for about 2 weeks because I had nothing else to read. So I found this old dictionary and Albanian English. I found this book. Somebody gave me this book. So God bless you for giving me this wonderful opportunity so I can improve my English. And I was studying English like mad because I wanted to sort of not waste 1 second of my life anymore. I wanted to catch up lost time. And so when I went to UK in 1993, that was doing this summer school, I managed to get into the advanced level for that 1 month because, without ever practicing English before 1991, for only 2 years, I had managed to go to a level of at least having some English skills. And that was it.
All thanks to Dr. Zhivago. You see what I can
Mainly, yes.
But yeah, I know exactly what you mean because you were hungry. And this is very often the problem in today's world. I think sometimes people are not hungry enough, for stuff that they could have. I don't mean hungry as in hungry from the stomach, but in hungry, we are overwhelmed with opportunities and we are overwhelmed with things and we don't really know where to start anymore. You knew what you wanted.
I believe the deprivations that I was facing as a kid and then as a young boy made me like kind of sculpt this massive will and massive desire that I had to succeed in life and make the best of all the opportunities that life presented to me. So I believe that if we link this to today's opportunities, which are limitless, we have no one else to blame but ourselves when we don't have a vision for our life. There is nothing lacking. There is nothing. We've got every tool possible out there. So all we need to do is become a little bit an orchestrator. We don't have to invent music. We just have to play along the kind of music that goes in tune with what we have as a talent, passion in life. But not much of will and desire is needed nowadays, because nowadays all we have to do is spot what we sort of like to develop as a skill, as a talent or passion, and just go about doing what we're supposed to do. Live as our very best possible version.
Fantastic. And that's so true. You started your own legal company from what I read, but I think from what I understand, your passion is motivating people. You want to more or less use your story. Basically, I think your message is, if I can do it, you can do it too.
I'm so, you just basically found the click now. Yes, that is so true. I believe each one of us has a purpose. And I love this quote from Rumi. I love Rumi actually as a thinker, and he's got this fantastic quote. He says, in order for us to be the very best version of ourselves, we have to sell our cleverness. And by cleverness, he means what we come to know, be that as a life experience or as our own cultivation in terms of the knowledge and expertise we tend to accumulate in life, and by what? Bewilderment, by our own happiness. So the very true purpose of each one of us is to live in tune with his own music. And I believe I've done all these things I told you about in terms of, I've worked for interesting companies. I've worked in public sector, private sector. Then in 2009, I just felt, yes, I need to do this because I've got this free spirit, this entrepreneurial spirit. And I felt that I wasn't going to do myself any justice if I didn't do this. And 2009, I started my own law firm, and has gone absolutely fantastic for me. I've been working with prestigious companies from across the globe, met fantastic people, wonderful individuals, talented, dedicated from across the globe. So I'm very, very sort of happy with what I've done. But to be honest with you, Elizabeth, I kind of felt that I was not listening to my real music. I was kind of, yes, the music I was listening was good, was nice. I was basically doing this, as a university professor, has always been interesting and challenging because of the attitude I have in life. I consider myself a student. I consider myself, and I would like to consider myself as a lifelong student. So being in touch with students, getting amongst them, felt real nice, because I have not been doing that for the past couple of years due to my heavy commitments now on this new venture. But I felt that no, this is not what I truly want to do with my life. I think there is so much more in me in terms of the positive impact I could have on the life of others. As you said yourself, if I could do it, and obviously it was not an uphill battle for me, but it was like I was 1,000 meters deep in the ocean rather than on earth. I was not standing on soil when I started this journey, reading those books incognito. I believe I've come to a point in my life that I've fulfilled all my sort of, I've grown myself. Of course, I feel and I need to grow each single day of my life, but I feel now that I've come to a point where I could share with others what I come to know and what I've come to cultivate as mindsets, as experiences, and as expertise in terms of the soft skills that I have developed. So that's about me now. I intend to do this as long as this is not going to be, I don't have a plan for retirement, by the way. If I live 90 or 100, I'm going to do that until the very last day I breathe. So this is what I plan to do with my life.
I totally agree with you. And retirement is for people who don't like what they do. If you like what you do, there is no need to retire. And I want to do, because you were introduced to me by another because what you're saying, everything you're saying is very inspiring. And you were introduced to me by another very inspiring person, by Mirella Sulla, who is also from Albania and who is the founder of the Global Woman Club. I was the director of the Global Woman Club Cyprus for 4 years until recently. And I want to thank her for introducing you to me, because otherwise we wouldn't be speaking here together. So shout out, Mirella. I hope you will be listening to this episode.
And allow me to also thank Mirella, because I will thank Mirella for two main, I could thank Mirella for 100 reasons, but two main reasons. I think she's one of the outstanding individuals, not because she's Albanian, but because she came from a background where the odds were stacked against her. And she is the sort of individual who went to the capital of Europe. I'm not going to mention Brussels as capital of Europe this time, but to the proper capital of Europe in terms of who's who and in terms of what's going on in the continent, in London. And she not only made it for herself, but she is being, for these past 10 years or so, a positive influence for the lives of so many people by setting her example. She is the force of the example. And this is the first thing. Second thing, I believe that in terms of what she's doing and the community of the people that she's doing, I have so much respect for all women who succeed, because women in general, if we have to be fair about things, they don't have the same tools as men do. So I deeply congratulate Mirella for these two things, for what she's done in her own life and becoming an absolute change for good for the life of people by setting her own example, her own success example against all odds. I need to stress this, and for positively influencing the lives of so many women across the globe. So yeah, the two of us are on the same page here.
Yes, I can absolutely agree with that. And sometimes I feel she has done so much, but she's only just started, and there's a lot more that she wants to do, and it's fantastic. Now, let's go back to something that I also read before you became a motivational speaker. You worked at Tirana Airport. You were a legal advisor for the company that built Tirana Airport, or what?
Yes, I was legal director of HOCTIF for Tirana, because the major shareholder at Tirana Airport was HOCTIF, a German company, one of the biggest German companies. Yes, I worked with them starting from the scratch. So everything that has been built in that airport has also my modest contribution, because I was overseeing all the legal work. And the way HOCTIF works in Germany, and of course, the way they set out about working in Albania is by outsourcing. So they are very, very good in outsourcing in terms of they supervise their contractors work very good, and they deliver absolute stunning results on that. So the airport was about to develop in as per the concession agreement that we had with government of Albania, was about to develop in about 6.5 years when HOCTIF took over in 2005. What happened was that everything was finished by 2007. So yes, I've had my modest role there, because at that time it was like sort of the main news in the country. The airport being privatized, not privatized as such, but run and managed by a German company, and of course developed by a German company. So Albanian public was eager to see what was coming in. So that you fully grasp this, the Albanian airport at this point in time is our main gate to all this tourism influx that we're having in the country. So yes, I do have my kind of a very small role and contribution in all this.
Yes, and I have been to that airport 5 times. I told you before we started recording, I've been to Albania 5 times. I have enjoyed every single visit, and I went there the first time in 2012 and the last time a couple of months in May this year. And it has developed in a very, very beautiful tourism destination, very good quality tourism at very good prices. I mean, the people are friendly. It is a little paradise, and maybe we shouldn't tell too many people about it. But then on the other hand, of course, people want to run their businesses. It really is a little secret, if you ask me, for those people who want to have unspoiled places. Albania is a little dream.
Yes, I agree with you. I agree with you. Albania is picking up, and Albania is no more the hidden gem of Europe. Albania is Albania. We're just south of us. We're bordering Greece, one of the stunning, let's say, countries in the Mediterranean, and not only Mediterranean but across the globe. And right above us is Montenegro again. So, it goes without saying that we are in a place where the sun meets the cuisine and hospitality, culture. We've got so many. You've visited Girocastra. I'm not sure whether you visited some really interesting towns. We have, for example, Kruja, which is
Yes, I've been there as well. Yes, I have. Yeah.
And Berat is stunning, beautiful. So we have some really interesting towns and cities here, but the coastal line we have in the Southern Riviera and what we have as beauty in the Albanian Alps are, they are, I'm not going to say unparalleled, but they stand on their own. Yes.
They can very easily stand on their own. I couldn't agree more. And it really, really is beautiful. Now, before we get to the end, we want to talk about your book. You wrote a book, and I also want to talk about your public speaking, your motivational speaking. And you could be booked, couldn't you? If somebody is interested in having a fantastic keynote speaker with a lot of inspiration, they could get in touch with you.
I would be most pleased to basically get in touch with anyone who would like to hear really authentic stories in terms of resilience and in terms of breakthroughs and in terms of making the very, very best out of unpleasant circumstances. But the main reason why I wrote this book, Elizabeth, I'd like to share this with you and your audience, is that in a way, book is a blueprint for what I would like to do with my professional, I stress this, professional life from now onwards. As soon as I come to a point, because I have not basically completely closed my law office, even though I'm planning to sell it by end of this year. But as soon as I come to a point where, let's say, I'm not fed up with law, but I think I've given all I could, and I'm not interested in developing myself as a lawyer anymore. My interest now primarily lies into developing myself as a motivational speaker and coach. So yes, this book is about, I would say, 4 cornerstones in any individual's lives. And by 4 cornerstones, I mean our emotional, I say for those people who don't believe in God, and spiritual for those people who believe in God, revival. So I have 3 chapters about the so-called spiritual revival. And I talk about accepting and changing reality. I talk about forgiveness, but I don't talk about forgiveness from the perspective of the sublime forgiveness that Jesus Christ exercised. I talk about forgiveness from a very grounded perspective, like the kind of forgiveness that this priest taught my dad in prison, this famous clergyman, one of the most famous clergymen Albania has ever had, Dom Nicol Mazreku. He basically told my dad, who do you think you are harming with all this hate, all this bitterness, all this rage you have about communism and communists? Do you think you're harming them? No. The only person you're harming is yourself. And as soon as you realize this, you're going to free a prisoner from prison. And actually, you're going to find out later on that the prisoner you freed is yourself. So basically, forgiving is like setting a prisoner free. and you find out that the prisoner you set free is yourself. You don't have to punish yourself for the wrongs and mistakes or whatever bad things others do. So leave that to them. Don't punish yourself by the hate, anger you cultivate in your mind and soul because people are doing wrong to you. So I talk about equanimity. I talk about, which is like the foundation of inner peace. I talk about the fact that if we are not attached, I love things, I love people, I love things, I love ideas, but hey, I'm not attached, or at least regarding people, because this is the most difficult thing. I tend to not attach myself to anything in terms of being clingy, in terms of, this, whatever we have in our life is transitory. We are transitory. Our clothes, our car, everything is transitory. So we better cultivate the mindset of appreciating and being thankful about the things we have rather than being clingy to them. Our kids, I love my two kids as much as a father could love them. But am I not aware of the fact that by the time they are 18, they are going to go and have their own lives? I should be aware of that, because if I'm not, then I'll be suffering. So I talk about non-attachment from, let's say, an emotional and spiritual perspective, but also from a physical perspective. I talk about then other aspects in terms of, let's say, realizing our full potential. It is only us that have the obligation to make the best of the circumstances, because circumstances will always be there, whether we like them or not. But President Kennedy has said this fantastic quote. He says, the Chinese language, which is basically one of the oldest languages that is currently spoken, has two hieroglyphs, two characters for the word danger. Word danger is described or is written by two different distinct characters. One means opportunity, and one means something which resembles to being extinguished, like death. So we can choose. We can live our life in fear or grab the opportunity, whatever opportunity life presents to us, because life is always presenting opportunities. And if there's something bitter that we experience, try to learn from that bitterness in terms of serving as a lesson, in terms of improving yourself, be that from the physical perspective, intellectual perspective, material perspective, or whatever perspective, or relationship perspective. And I talk about emotional intelligence. I talk about social intelligence in terms of achieving success. Everybody should know that it's not our IQ which basically lays the path for our success, but is our emotional state. So many, let's say, studies have certified it. Is that if we divide percentages in terms of the success, outer success, I'm talking, achieving our personal and professional objectives, be that business-wise, be that career-wise, be that financial, let's say, ambitions that we have, it is not our IQ, but it is our, let's say, emotional intelligence and social intelligence that determines our success. So I talk about ikigai. Ikigai is Japanese purpose. I talk about every failure is a stepping stone to success, because fear of failure, like immobilizes so many people. All of us have passions, all of us have desires, but some of us are stuck because we might be considered as failures if we try something and we don't achieve the desired, let's say, goal. So I talk about so many things in my book, and all of them have three pillars. Empirical knowledge. So you find in my book Marcus Aurelius, Confucius, Epictetus, Seneca. You find all the stages of let's say, antiquity. I also, the second pillar is the so-called studies, and all the eminent scientists are there in terms of what science proves about the topics that I mentioned, and also my personal perspective in terms of how I come to have these, let's say, mindsets. And of course, I talk about all the soft skills such as leadership skills, communication skills, let's say, persuasion skills, negotiation skills, all these desirable soft skills in order for each one of us to live at the very peak in terms of our own personal and professional achievements in life.
And Bilal, what's the book called?
The book, by the way, in English, because the book it will be coming out in. I'll be attending the launch event on November 4th in London. The book in English will be 12 Mindsets to Improve Life Radically.
Excellent.
But that will come out on November 4th.
This podcast episode will probably not be posted before, so you can send me the link when it's available.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Really appreciate that.
I think that was a fascinating, and it sounds like a fascinating book, and it contains more or less everything that people should know to live a meaningful life. And I think this is a good end to this podcast episode. Any last words, Bilal?
I truly enjoyed the conversation with you, and I really like to keep in contact because I would like to learn as much as I can from someone like you who's been doing this for years and years. And the only thing I say is that this is our first, let's say, podcast, but I would truly like to someday invite you to my podcast because I intend to have my podcast as well. So I would like for the two of us to remain in touch, and I would like to also learn as much as I can from you, but sometimes I might also give you one or two insights as well.
It will be my absolute pleasure. And I think what you said during the conversation, life is a lifelong learning process. We never, ever know everything. And if we are willing to listen to people, we can always learn something. And with this, I would like to end this episode. And I want to thank you very, very much for being on Most Memorable Journeys today, Bilal Kola.
Thank you, Elizabeth. It has been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you.
If you enjoy my podcast, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. You will find all the information in the show notes.